When Joe Rogan decides someone is worth discussing on the Joe Rogan Experience, the ripple effect is immediate and enormous. 15 million listeners per episode. Clips that spread across every platform within hours. Cultural conversations that shift the moment he puts them into words. And on March 20th, 2026, episode 2471, with comedian Mark Normand, Joe Rogan put Erica Kirk directly into his crosshairs, not with fabricated evidence, or invented timelines with his own documented on record publicly, confirmed commentary that sent the internet into a full spiral and drew a line in the sand across the entire conservative media world. This is the story of what Rogan actually said, what Owens actually documented, what the confirmed conservative civil war over Erica Kirk actually looks like from the inside, and why the reaction to all of it has been as revealing as the original comments themselves. Let us start with exactly what happened on JRIA episode 2471, because the documented facts are compelling enough without embellishment. Rogan referred to Erica as an odd duck before referencing a video compilation of her making what he described as demon and crazy eyes, with comedian Mark Normand describing her as a kook and possessed. Rogan demonstrated some of her expressions himself, mimicking ominous music and saying she just gets intense. Then, Rogan pulled up the clip of Erica's December 2025 CBS town hall interview with Bari Weiss. After the clip played, Normand said it seemed like Kirk was having a good time and described her as a star chaser, to which Rogan responded a little bit maybe. That exchange, Rogan and Normand watching footage of a grieving widow and describing her as a star chaser having a good time, was the specific clip that went viral fastest and drew the sharpest reactions from both directions. But the comment that generated the most sustained online discussion came when Rogan brought up Erica's professional background before Charlie. He said she was in some weird CIA films, some weird internal films that she was a part of. It is very weird. It is about empathax and power grids. This is a documented, verifiable fact. Erica Kirk did appear in government-produced informational videos about national security threats, including electromagnetic pulse attacks during her time as a public figure in conservative circles, before meeting Charlie. The contrast stood out to Rogan, who noted how jarring it was to see someone with a polished pageant-style image discussing high-level national security concerns. Rogan also made a separate claim, unverified and unclear, by all accounts, in which he said he had heard Erica Kirk had found a new partner within 6 months of Charlie's assassination. He made the claim while puffing on cigars with Normand, who responded, "Whoa, well, she seems thrilled right now." All sources confirmed this specific claim was unverified and lacked confirmation from any valid source. It should be treated as Rogan repeating unconfirmed gossip rather than presenting documented evidence, which is exactly how he framed it. Erica Kirk's out here pretending she's some truth teller. No man, she's full of straight up something. But it infuriated people because they felt like this guy is going against the progress that was being made in society. But what he did not feel like was progress like it was a progressive agenda that was being pushed in most college campuses. It is a leftist, Marxist sort of agenda. He didn't feel like that was the correct way to live, and he felt like he had arguments against it. And he wanted, and it was, it's a business too, right? Like he developed this big social media presence. President had recently appointed Erica to an advisory role on the Air Force Academy's Board of Visitors, a group that reviews issues including morale, discipline, curriculum instruction, physical equipment, fiscal affairs, and academic methods. That appointment coming while Rogan was publicly calling her an odd duck with demon eyes added another layer of surreal contrast to the entire situation. After a clip of Rogan's comments went viral on X, critics quickly called out the UFC commentator. One X user wrote, "Joe Rogan's crude mockery of Erica Kirk is vile, baseless, and straight-up evil, dragging a grieving widow through the mud while her husband's body is barely cold." Another wrote, "I'm officially done with Rogan. He is now in the same pond as Candace and Tucker." That last comment, placing Rogan in the same category as Owens and Carlson, captures something important about how the conservative media landscape fractured in response to all of this. Because the reaction to Rogan's comments was not simply liberals versus conservatives. It was conservatives versus conservatives. With real names, real platforms, and real documented positions, Candace Owens has not been shy about letting the world know how she feels about the new CEO of Turning Point USA. In her Bride of Charlie series, Owens claimed Erica always wanted to be famous, and that her mother, Lori France, has always been the person in Erica's ear, describing France as this type A person that tells her who to go after in each and every room. She knows who those people are, who Erica should instantly transform into what she has to say. That characterization of Lori France as an active strategic operator behind Erica's social positioning has become one of the most discussed elements of Owens's Bride of Charlie investigative series. On the other side of the divide, Tim Pool publicly stated that Owens was doing more damage to Charlie Kirk's legacy than anyone else currently involved in the public conversation. Ben Shapiro used the word evil to describe her approach. These are documented on record statements from major conservative media figures. Laura Loomer called Owens cruel and unhinged for her treatment of a grieving widow. The conservative civil war over Erica Kirk became one of the defining internal conflicts of the right in the months following Charlie's assassination, and Rogan's episode 2471 added the largest mainstream platform yet to the side, questioning Erica's public narrative. What made Rogan's involvement particularly significant was not just his reach. It was the specific framing he used, the handler theory, the suggestion circulating in online communities that Erica was positioned in Charlie's life, not organically, but strategically by people with interests in managing his behavior, was something Rogan referenced, directly noting that a lot of people held that view. He did not endorse it as proven fact. He described it as observed public sentiment, but putting the handler framing in front of 15 million listeners at once gave it a legitimacy and a reach that no podcast or social media thread had achieved before. Now let us address what Owens has actually documented and confirmed, because the Bride of Charlie series is the investigative foundation that Rogan's comments sit on top of, and its verified findings deserve accurate treatment separate from the unverified theories. What Owens confirmed through documented sources, the Mikey McCoy call log. Timeline in which Turning Point USA's own provided records showed McCoy called his wife Elizabeth first after Charlie was killed, stayed on the phone with her for 10 minutes, added Erica at the 3-minute mark, and then added Pastor Rob, directly contradicting Blake Neff's public account that McCoy immediately called Erica and then his father. That specific discrepancy is documented and sourced to Turning Point USA's own records. What Owens confirmed, Tyler Bowyer's public tweet claiming cameras were shut down immediately on police orders, is contradicted by footage in her possession, showing the cameraman continuing to film for approximately 4 minutes after the attack.
That is a documented, specific, verifiable contradiction between a public tweet and physical footage. And I don't, like I said, I don't agree. I don't think some of the things he said he should have said.
But the fact that people were cheering when he normal people, housewives, moms, like people working at banks, people working at various industries, celebrating a man getting shot in front of his kids, in front of the whole world. What the hell is wrong with us? What Owens confirmed, the 4.5-hour private meeting with Erica on December 15, 2025, confirmed by both women's X posts, which Owens described as extremely productive on the night of the meeting, and then followed the next morning with 40 minutes of continuing to push the same theories it was presumably meant to resolve. Owens opened her following podcast episode with 4.5 hours later, "I'm alive, I'm alive." That quote is confirmed by CNN's December 16th coverage. What Owens documented and Candace herself described as her stated conclusion that Erica Kirk is being used as an emotional asset. Her exact TikTok caption confirmed by the post itself, with 43,900 likes and 1,555 comments, whose crying clips are being strategically amplified to maintain public sympathy and deflect scrutiny. Whether the specific amplification mechanism Owens describes is accurate is unverified. That she made the claim publicly and specifically is confirmed. The reaction to all of this from Erica Kirk's camp has followed a documented and consistent pattern. The Blake Neff dating rumor got a detailed personal aggressive public denial within hours. The Mikey McCoy call log contradiction got no direct public response. The Troll's succession video situation got Andrew Colvit's documented admission that the video shown at the Women's Leadership Summit was sourced from a 2023 ActCon event rather than the claimed Aspen meeting. The merch audio has never been confirmed or denied. The pattern of which questions get answered and which get silence is what Owens, Rogan, and the online community tracking this story have been pointing to as the most revealing aspect of Erica's public communication strategy. And now there is the July 2026 preliminary hearing context, which adds the most recent documented layer to everything Rogan and Owens have been discussing. At the July 6th hearing, Erica did not manage to stay in the room for long. Witnesses said she began crying even before the first evidence was presented, then left the courtroom as a police officer described the moment Charlie was killed. The community that has been following Owens's emotional asset framing watched that moment with the specific analytical lens Owens had given them, and the debate about whether the tears were genuine grief or strategic performance reignited immediately across every platform. As prosecutors pursue the death penalty for Robinson Kirk's act of public forgiveness hangs over the proceedings, forcing a confrontation between personal faith and the state's demand for capital punishment. Erica's public forgiveness of Tyler Robinson, that young man, I forgive him, which produced a standing ovation at the State Farm Stadium Memorial in September 2025, now sits in an uncomfortable legal context. The widow who publicly forgave her husband's alleged attacker is simultaneously represented by attorneys pursuing the maximum possible punishment on her behalf. That tension between personal faith and legal strategy is something neither Rogan nor Owens has addressed directly, but it is documented and real. President attended the July 6th hearing in support, sitting with the family as proceedings got underway. The Kirk family, including Charlie's parents and sister Mary, sat together with Erica and issued a joint statement. Whatever private tensions have been documented through trademark filings, probate challenges, and reported family conflicts, the public posture on July 6th was unified, measured, and focused on the legal proceedings. That unified public posture is in a way the clearest answer the Kirk family has given to the entire Rogan-Owens Civil War conversation. They did not post videos. They did not give interviews. They did not weigh in on demon eyes or emotional assets or handler theories. They went to court. They sat together. They released a joint statement. And then they let the legal process do what legal processes do. Whether that quiet, measured legal posture ultimately speaks louder than Rogan's demonized commentary or Owens's TikTok emotional asset label, or the conservative media infighting playing out across every platform remains to be seen. What is certain is that on July 6th, 2026, the actual case against the man charged with Charlie Kirk's killing began moving through a courtroom in Provo, Utah. And no amount of podcast commentary, viral clips, or conservative media infighting changes what that process will ultimately produce. What do you think? Did Rogan's Odd Duck and CIA Films commentary add legitimate weight to the questions being raised about Erica Kirk? Or did it cross a line into mockery of a grieving widow that went too far regardless of the underlying questions? The entire episode sits inside a larger cultural moment where the conservative movement itself is fracturing under the weight of grief power struggles and unresolved questions about loyalty and authenticity. Charlie Kirk built Turning Point USA into one of the most effective youth organizations on the right by combining sharp campus debates with relentless social media presence and an unapologetic defense of traditional American values. His assassination on September 10, 2025, at Utah Valley University, while answering a question about gun violence, turned him into a martyr for millions and simultaneously opened a vacuum at the top of the organization he founded. Erica Kirk stepped into that vacuum first as grieving widow then, as new CEO, and the transition has never been smooth. The speed with which she assumed public leadership, the polish of her media appearances, and the intensity of her emotional displays have become the primary evidence cited by those who believe something more calculated is at work. Owens's series has spent episode after episode mapping timelines, family, backgrounds, previous relationships, and professional histories looking for patterns that might explain why a woman with pageant experience and national security video credits ended up at the center of the most powerful conservative youth movement in the country. Rogan's decision to platform those same questions, even while framing them as curiosity rather than accusation, gave the skepticism a mainstream audience that no amount of niche podcasting could have reached. The handler theory itself is not new. Versions of it have circulated in online spaces for months, suggesting that Charlie's rapid rise, his access to high-level political figures, and his eventual marriage were all part of a larger management strategy designed to keep a talented but potentially uncontrollable voice inside acceptable lanes. Rogan did not invent the theory. He simply observed that a lot of people held it and then put that observation in front of 15 million listeners. The reaction from the portion of the conservative media that still treats Erica as the rightful steward of Charlie's legacy was immediate and furious. Shapiro's use of the word evil was not casual. Loomer's accusation of cruelty was not mild. Poole's claim that Owens was doing more damage than anyone else was a direct challenge to the investigative framing itself. These are not fringe voices. They are among the most listened-to figures on the right, and their public break with Owens over this issue has created visible camps that continue to trade accusations of grift, disloyalty, and opportunism. Inside Turning Point USA, the internal dynamics have remained largely opaque. Staff members who once worked closely with Charlie have either stayed silent or issued carefully worded statements of support for Erica. The organization's public communications have focused almost exclusively on continuing the campus tours, defending free speech, and advancing the policy priorities Charlie championed, while refusing to engage the personal questions raised by Owens and amplified by Rogan. That silence has itself become part of the story. In the absence of detailed rebuttals, every unanswered discrepancy, every timeline inconsistency, every selective response becomes fresh fuel for the next round of speculation. The July preliminary hearing added a new layer of visual evidence that both sides immediately claimed as validation. Erica's early exit from the courtroom as the description of the shooting began was interpreted by supporters as the understandable reaction of a traumatized widow, and by critics as another carefully timed emotional display designed to reinforce the narrative of pure grief. The presence of the president and the unified family statement projected strength and continuity, yet the private legal battles over trademarks and probate that had already been reported continued to simmer in the background. The tension between Erica's public act of forgiveness and the legal team's pursuit of the death penalty remains one of the most unresolved contradictions in the entire saga. At the State Farm Stadium memorial, the crowd rose to its feet when she declared she forgave Tyler Robinson. That moment was broadcast nationally and became one of the defining images of the days after the assassination. Yet the same legal representatives who stood beside her that day are now arguing for the ultimate penalty in a Utah courtroom. Neither Rogan nor Owens has spent significant time examining that tension, but it sits at the intersection of faith politics and institutional power in a way that reveals how personal conviction and organizational strategy can pull in opposite directions. The broader conservative ecosystem has not recovered its previous coherence. What began as shared mourning for a fallen leader has hardened into competing claims about who truly represents Charlie's vision and who is exploiting his memory. Rogan's comments did not create that division. They simply made it impossible to ignore. By treating Erica's public persona as something worth examining, rather than something to be protected, the largest podcast in the world forced every other major voice on the right to choose a side. Some chose the side of institutional loyalty and emotional solidarity. Others chose the side of skepticism and investigative persistence. The resulting civil war is still playing out in real time, with every new hearing, every new clip, every new statement becoming another piece of ammunition. The questions raised about Erica's background, her mother's influence, her emotional presentations, and the speed of her ascent will not disappear simply because a courtroom process is underway. They will continue to shape how a significant portion of the conservative audience views the organization Charlie built and the people now leading it. Whether those questions ultimately prove to be grounded in verifiable patterns, or whether they dissolve under the weight of incomplete information, is a matter the public will decide over the coming months and years. What cannot be disputed is that the conversation has already changed. A grieving widow has become a contested figure. A mainstream comedian has become a participant in a right-wing media war. And the legacy of one of the most effective communicators of his generation is now being fought over by the very people who once claimed to share his mission. The July hearing marked the beginning of the formal legal accounting for Charlie Kirk's death. The cultural and political accounting is still far from finished, and every new voice that enters the discussion, whether through a 3-hour podcast or a carefully produced investigative series, only deepens the fracture that now runs through the heart of the movement he helped build.